The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I'm all over the place. I'm, of course, your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So I got a couple of items to knock down today. The most pressing is Mike McDaniel, former Dolphins head coach, fired today by the Dolphins, which we knew could happen, weren't sure if it was going to happen. He survived Black Monday. I talked about that on Tuesday. He didn't survive Thrashing Thursday. He got canned today. He will be among a short list of guys that have been fired that will be right back in this cycle as guys that can get right back into the head coaching space by being hired by another team. A quarter of the league's jobs are open. That's right. 8 jobs are officially open with the Dolphins firing McDaniel. So there are plenty of opportunities that exist for a guy like Mike McDaniel with his talents and skill sets to be hired again. And thus it makes us who want him here a little bit skeptical as to whether or not it could happen. But if the possibility exists, DQ, you know what to do. Bring him home. You do whatever you got to do in Josh Harris. You stroke whatever check you got to stroke to get this man to come to DC to be the offensive coordinator of Jaden Daniels. So we'll see how the rest of this offseason shakes out. Let's talk about some happenings as I try to keep you up on the latest and greatest surrounding the National Football League, but also tying it back to the burgundy and gold here on the Louie T Network. So let's get to something that you may have missed out on the streets. This is from our guy, Ari Miroff, he does like a great job of covering the NFL. I had him on this program over last summer, I believe it was. And he listens to all of these exit interviews and kind of does everything. He has his hands in all 32 teams' affairs. And so Brad Holmes, as we know, with every team, the general manager speaks at the end of the season. We heard Dan Quinn and Adam Peters speak here. Brad Holmes, according to Ari, gave the impression that running back David Montgomery could be moved on from this offseason. Quote, this is from Brad Holmes. He deserves to be in a situation where his skill set can be utilized, close quote. And I thought to myself, watching the Detroit Lions last year, towards the end of the season, I remember Dan Campbell saying, with about 6 games or so left, that they have to get David Montgomery more involved. That is so hard to do when you have Jahmyr Gibbs, isn't it? Because in order to get David Montgomery involved, you got to take either Jahmyr Gibbs off the field or you got to take the ball out of his hands. And they didn't really want to do either one of those two things. And so there were a lot of games towards the end of the season where David Montgomery might have gotten 3 or 4 carries, 6 touches total. And you're talking about a guy that has been a 1,000-yard running back in this league, is a dynamic back himself, can do a lot of different things, and at one point was viewed as like this tremendous blend of power and speed when he first came out of Iowa State. And he was outstanding for the Lions just a year ago, right? They made the Sonic and Knuckles tandem that led this team to the best record in all of the National Football League just a season ago. And then Jahmyr Gibbs' star took off. He became this outstanding dynamo of a running back, one of the best we've seen in this league, it feels like, in quite some time, because not only is he one of the most dynamic speed home run hitting threats we've seen in this league, but the combination of him being able to do that, catch it out of the backfield, and still run in between the tackles with power makes him a different type of back. Like with Devin Achane, he's dynamic, but he's not a physical in between the tackles running back. You get him outside on the perimeter, and Devin Achane is probably the fastest back in the league, but he can't do the dirty work in between the tackles, which is why they went and got Ollie Gordon in the draft. They don't see a need or use for David Montgomery. He's still relatively young. He's still a guy that can be very productive in this league. I don't think it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. He may be added, and I talked about this when we talked about other positions that might not have as many names that get you excited, like the receiver position, for instance. This is the type of thing that's going to happen at some of these other positions this offseason, where you could see a situation like a running back like David Montgomery be released. You didn't think he would be available. We've been talking about guys like Breece Hall and K9 and Tyler Algier. You add David Montgomery to this mix, and he goes straight to number 3 on that list behind Breece Hall, K9. Then it's David Montgomery. Then you get to Tyler Algier. So, hell, I'd put David Montgomery. If you believe in Bill, which I do, I'd put David Montgomery ahead of Rachaad White. I'd put David Montgomery ahead of Rachaad White. If you believe in Bill and you believe in a 1-2 punch of Bill and fill in the blank, and you're not going to go out and get a guy like Breece Hall or K9, David Montgomery might be the perfect fit to go alongside a Bill in this offense. Again, we'll see what what the Commanders decide to do. And it really also comes down to who your offensive coordinator is. You go out and you get a Mike McDaniel. Rachaad White is probably a better fit. K9 and Breece Hall are definitely better fits for this offense than David Montgomery. You get a different type of coordinator where they're going to be running more power and gap scheme. David Montgomery would be a much better fit. Tyler Algier would be a great fit here alongside Bill. So just another name to throw in the mix. And this is what I'm talking about at other positions like receiver. You could see some guys. I've been having conversations with people that think DJ Moore could get cut. When you look at Chicago, you look at all the weapons that they have, and you look at how often DJ Moore is targeted in that offense. It's not very often. There are games where DJ Moore goes off. There's games where DJ Moore doesn't even exist. You get a healthy Rome Odunze. You see what they've gotten out of Luther Burden III. You see what they're getting out of the undrafted rookie Walker. And all of a sudden, you start looking around and you say, do we actually need to be spending this money on DJ Moore? He could be a casualty. Those types of guys could end up being available. Again, not saying that we would be interested, but more names are going to enter the fray, like a guy like David Montgomery, potentially. So just continue to keep monitoring these various situations as we continue on. Of course, Jordan Schultz, who gave us hits this offseason like Offseason Disconnect and the number 1 smash hit, Meddling, would of course have, nobody else has this, by the way. No one else is talking about this. Of course. Jordan Schultz says, well, that was fast. Sources say Cliff's agent. He doesn't have to say sources. Cliff's agent, the same guy that pinned the hit that you had the other day, Meddling, the same guy that pinned that hit for you, says that former Commanders offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury will interview for the Ravens and Titans open head coaching positions. Now, whether it's true or not, which it probably is not of any consequence to us, except for this. If you are a fan of Mike McDaniel and want him here, you are rooting like hell for Cliff Kingsbury. to get one of these jobs, specifically the Titans job. Okay. The Ravens job is a hot commodity job. They're going to be able to land someone dynamic there. Maybe even a Mike McDaniel would be interested in that job. And maybe they would even be interested in him because of what he could do with that type of speed on their offense. We'll see. But Ravens don't seem like a great fit for Mike McDaniel. The Titans do, however, with a young quarterback like Cam Ward, which is why you want to take jobs like that off of the market. The Giants job and the Titans job seem like the two biggest threats to Mike McDaniel getting a job, right? If you want him to remain an offensive coordinator and end up here, you want the Titans job gone, you want the Giants job gone. Those seem like the two jobs that have quarterbacks already that are going to be intrigued. Now, the Raiders don't know, kind of, they're, sort of a wild card in all of this because they don't have a quarterback, but they have the number 1 overall pick. And if you love what they have, like, McDaniel could probably go in there, and if he loves, let's say, Moore, and if he drafts Moore and he's able to get Genty to where he needs to be, you got Brock Bowers. He could probably do wonders with that offense and go out and get him a receiver as well. Probably could do wonders with that offense. But the Titans job and the Giants job, because they already have young quarterbacks that could really benefit from an offensive wizard like McDaniel, these are the two jobs in particular that scare me. If Cliff were to take one of those jobs off the table, feels like Cliff would be more so Titans than he would Giants. So if Cliff could take the Titans job, that'd be awesome. And I'd be happy for Cliff. Go get him, Cliffy. But if you're a fan of Mike McDaniel ending up here, you want him being Cliff, to get the Titans job. You want Cliff Kingsbury to get a job, or you just want the Titans job and the Giants job to end up off the board. Those are the two jobs that feel the most dangerous in terms of Mike McDaniel. As we move on, of course, I talk about Mike McDaniel and him potentially ending up here. Why? Because he was fired today by the Miami Dolphins. This was something that we thought could happen. We didn't know if it was going to happen. I wasn't sure. I thought he was going to survive, but it's always dicey when the general manager gets fired and then the head coach is kind of caught in limbo. This is the right thing to do, first and foremost, if you're the Dolphins. The worst thing you can do is hire a general manager and force a coach upon him and then put that coach in a position where he's got to win in that first year or else. It's just a nasty situation. If you're going to fire the GM, you might as well fire the head coach while you're at it. Start from scratch, start fresh, allow the GM to come in, pick his head coach, and you move on from there, similar to what the Falcons have just done. It doesn't make sense to hire one and then hire the other. And it's the same thing with a GM. You keep the GM. It's a little different unless that GM is on the hot seat, right? If you fire the head coach but keep the GM, which we've seen this offseason. Joe Schoen is a great example of that with the Giants. But if Joe Schoen's going to be fired next year, right? If he's on the verge of being fired and you're going to give him one more chance, what's the point of giving him a chance to hire a coach? That coach doesn't get it done in the first year because, again, if you're hiring a coach this year, more likely than not, your team isn't very good. That's not always the case. We saw it in Chicago last year. They hired Ben Johnson. Boom. We're fighting for the number 1 seed for the vast majority of this season. Same thing with New England. They hire Mike Vrabel. Boom. They go to the number 1 seed in the AFC or the number 2 seed in the AFC. So it's not always the case, but the Giants hadn't won 2 games in a row since 2024 until they did it the final 2 weeks of the season this year. So again, I don't think, again, I can't say for sure. I don't think the Giants are just going to all of a sudden turn it around. So Joe Schoen hiring another coach and that coach isn't successful in year 1, does Joe Schoen get fired? It doesn't make sense. To me, this is the right thing to do. As we continue on with this, let's see what some reasons and some context behind Mike McDaniel getting fired in Miami. This coming from Jeff Darlington today. He writes, some context into Dolphins' decision to fire Mike McDaniel per multiple people involved in the decision. Owner Steve Ross met with McDaniel on Tuesday, and the outcome of the meeting left Ross very conflicted. He really likes Mike, quote, loves his intelligence and offensive mind. Don't we all? Close quote. Don't we all? Which is why we want him here. But Tuesday's meeting resulted in some hard thoughts. Ross didn't feel like the results were there. And despite the end of the year production, Ross simply wasn't comfortable moving forward with the, quote, status quo, close quote. Now, for the elephant in the room, I'm told the Dolphins have not yet been in touch with John Harbaugh or anyone in his camp, and people close to the decision are adamant this decision to move away from McDaniel is independent of Harbaugh's availability. So the rest of it is more so Dolphins specific. I only read the Harbaugh part because Harbaugh is a huge part of this offseason, and directly, Harbaugh is a huge part of what happens here in Washington. Because again, I just told you, I think the Giants and the Titans are the two biggest threats to McDaniel getting a job because of their current quarterback situation. And Harbaugh could end up in New York with the Giants. Harbaugh could end up elsewhere. There are 8 jobs available, and 7 of them are probably going to be jobs that Harbaugh will be the centerpiece and focal point of. Obviously, he's not going back to Baltimore. And the likelihood, wherever he goes, he's probably going to take his offensive coordinator from Baltimore with him. So that's a job where you don't have to worry about McDaniel possibly going there as the offensive coordinator. Also, if you're going to get Mike McDaniel, you need to act fast. Like, clearly he's going to be intrigued by head coaching opportunities. He's not looking to be a coordinator unless he has to. But keep in mind, other teams are looking for offensive coordinators as well. Case in point, the Detroit Lions, who fired John Morton, I think on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. They have already reached out to Mike McDaniel's agent to facilitate a meeting, or at least to put a feeler out to see if he was interested in being the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. And I'm like, hey, hands off of our merchandise, bruh. Okay. Don't nobody want to work with Jared Goff's ass. Hey, leave him alone. So I'm like, hey, DQ, don't be over here bullshitting, man. If this is what you were waiting on to see if your boy shook free, he's free. Go ahead, make contact. And again, we should have the inside track. Okay. We watched the love fest over in Madrid when these two all week long couldn't stop talking about the love they had for one another and how DQ was a huge part of his sobriety and he loves Dan Quinn and he gave him his first shot and this, that, and the third. Hey, Dan Quinn, don't fumble this opportunity, bro. If it is actually a real chance of this taking place, bring him home. Bring him home. Make him a commander, and let's get this offseason off to a roaring start. I don't know what we're going to do with defensive coordinator. I don't think it's going to move the needle. You really want to move the needle, and I feel like the offensive coordinator hire is the needle mover. Before we get to any acquisitions of players and roster movement, we're talking about a coaching staff that is going over some significant changes. 2 coordinators and an offensive line coach. You want to get off to a roaring start, go get Mike McDaniel. Bring him home, make him a commander, and get Jaden Daniels the type of offensive mind that could take his game through the roof and into a different stratosphere. We already think Jaden Daniels is one of the best quarterbacks, or could be one of the best quarterbacks in football, depending on who you are. I already think he is one of the best quarterbacks in football, but he's got to do it again. And they've got to surround him with more talent. And the one thing that they could do right now, before we even start talking about the talent upgrades that need to be made, if you want to talk about something that can have a significant impact on Jaden Daniels' future and have him regarded as one of the best in the league, you go get Mike McDaniel or a coordinator of that ilk. There aren't many that have the chops of a Mike McDaniel that are available right now. There aren't many. He's one of the few. If he is interested, and you need to find out, of course he's going to want to be a head coach again. Of course. So he's going to explore all those options first. But you better be first in line. Once he's explored those options and they don't work out for him, you better be first in line. So position yourself to be the first one that he turns to if he's looking for work as an offensive coordinator. You fired Cliff, and if you want to make this right, the easiest and the quickest way to do so is to get Mike McDaniel. We weren't sure if he was going to be available. He became available. Now you know what to do. Bring him home ASAP. So I'm hoping that this goes. This is the first part of the plan, right? If you were team, get rid of Cliff, get Cliff Kingsbury out of here, get Mike McDaniel in here. Phase 1 was a success. They got Cliff out of here. Phase 2 was Mike McDaniel had to become available. That is a success. Now phase 3 is finding a way to get him here to Washington. Or phase 3 really is him not getting a head coaching job. And then phase 4 would be getting him here to Washington and not letting him leave. So we're on to phase 3, which is cross your fingers and hope he doesn't get a head coaching gig. And then you're on to the next, on to the next one. Hard to move on when you always regret one. Then you're on to the next phase. If we can get him to not get a job, you got to get him here to Washington ASAP. So without any further ado, let's get to a quick word from our sponsor. Come back on the other side, and we'll get to the comment section before I get you guys out of here. Sleeper. Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat in the games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips. Play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN, and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Sleeper. All right. Let's get to the comment section. See what you guys have to say. Terry Maples, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Terry, writes, damn, Lou, it's happening. The stars are aligned. McDaniel and Morris complete this staff. Hell yeah. Also would love Rashad White. So that would be crazy if you got McDaniel and Morris, because it would be like getting the band back together. It'd be like getting the family back together as one. I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing or not. Because they didn't have tremendous success in Atlanta, but I'm not opposed to it. Again, I think the leader in the clubhouse, if we were putting odds on this, and I'm pretty sure there's somewhere where you could probably get odds on this, I'm pretty sure that Morris would be the leader in the clubhouse for the defensive coordinator job. Again, that wouldn't be a necessary needle mover for me, but I'm not opposed to it. I got no issues with that. McDaniel is the one that is the needle mover. That's the one that would get the fan base excited. And honestly, that's the one that would get everyone excited. People that are outside of this building, people that are talking heads, McDaniel is one of the premier offensive play designers and play callers in the league. The amount of motion he uses, the amount of misdirection, the amount of eye candy and things that you have to defend. Could you imagine if we were able to finally get Terry the amount of targets that he so rightfully deserves? McDaniel would be able to do that. I think he would be able to unlock Terry in a way we haven't seen in his career to this point thus far. You go out and get him one guy outside of Terry that can absolutely flat out fly. And maybe you even are able to then maximize a guy like Jalen Lane a little bit better and utilize his talents as a guy that is dynamic with the ball in his hands. But I think you need one of these quick, fast, jittery guys. There's only one Tyreek Hill. He was tailor-made for McDaniel's system in Miami. And I think Waddle was like an extension of that. You go get a guy like that, and they don't grow on trees, obviously, but if you go get a guy like that, oh my God, could you imagine what this offense could be? And then you throw one dynamic back in there, and that back could be Bill, but it's probably not. You go get you a K9, you go get you a Breece Hall, and you add them into this mix. What are we talking about? Rashad White would be cool too. Like he's no bum, but he's no Devin Achane. You know, he's no K9. He's no Breece Hall. He's no Jahmyr Gibbs. He'd be cool, but I'm looking for something difference-making, home run hitting. And whether that's in the draft, Jeremiah Love, anybody? Like, you get Mike McDaniel. I'm not opposed. I know we need edge rusher, and if he's not there, you sitting there at 7, and you now have Mike McDaniel as your offensive coordinator. Don't tell me you would not be enthralled with the idea of Jeremiah Love teaming up with Mike McDaniel in this offense with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. Are you effing kidding me? What? Now, we'd still have a lot of work to do on the defensive side of the football, and maybe they get some of that done in free agency so that it's not as pressing a need as you hit the draft. That would be ideal, right? But McDaniel is the key to all of this being unlocked. And if he's not here, okay, look, it's not the end of the world. I don't want to get my hopes up too high because that's what we do here. We fantasize about certain things coming to fruition. They don't, and then we're upset, disappointed, and hurt. I don't want to put myself in that position, but it feels like it's very close now. I almost feel like I can reach out and touch it. I'm really close. We're really close. Now we just need, you said the stars are aligning. Now we just need things to fall into place even more. All right. Close. We're in phase 3. Let's see if we can't get to phase 4. And if we get to phase 4, I think DQ is going to bring it home. Rarely even. My guy, Ree. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Ree writes, how do you think Mike McDaniel would fit as OC with the Buccaneers? Would he be a good fit with our offensive personnel? Yeah, I don't know if your personnel would be the best. Look, he could fit with anyone's personnel. I mean, but the thing about Mike McDaniel, at least what we've seen from him, is he's best suited when he's got a track team on the field. The Bucs don't have a track team offense, right? I right now I'm trying to think. Emeka Egbuka might be your fastest receiver. I don't think Jalen McMillan is super fast. We know that Evans isn't fast. We know that Godwin isn't fast. Bucky Irving isn't fast. He's quick as hell, but he's not fast. I don't know if anybody, like, he could make that offense work. There's plenty of weapons he can get the ball to, like, and the guy that's going in motion and doing all that could be Tez Johnson. So you got enough guys that, you know, you could play around, put in different spots and make it work. But it feels like an offense that he's coaching needs to have elite speed or something close to it. Doesn't feel like the Buccaneers have that. But again, who shouldn't be able to thrive? If you're a dynamic play caller, that is. Who wouldn't be able to thrive in Tampa Bay with all of the weapons that the Buccaneers feature? Like I said this going into the season last year, the Buccaneers have the best wide receiving core. It was unfortunate that it really was never fully healthy this season. So you never really got to see it unlocked because McMillan was hurt for the first 8-9 games of the season or so. Evans, by the time he was back, Evans was out. Godwin was in and out of the lineup until he finally got fully healthy. And Agbuka started out like gangbusters. Then he started to have all kinds of issues with drops and things of that nature. So you never really got to see it fully coalesce. But the Bucs still have one of the best receiving cores in the league, and Bucky Irving is a really good back. He would definitely be able to go in there and make that shake. But again, you're looking for something dynamic. I don't know if the Bucs are necessarily dynamic in terms of speed and athleticism, but he would definitely be able to make it work in Tampa Bay for sure. Shadow Striker 789, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Shadow Striker writes, what percent does Mike McDaniel have of coming here? Normally, I think we'd have to go OC before head coach like DQ had to do as a DC, but there's too many openings and not enough competition. Feel like he gets a head coaching job. That's the struggle, right? There's 8 openings now. 7 of them are going to be at, like 7 of them are potential destinations for him, right? Obviously, he's not going back to Miami. So to your point, the demand, if you're looking for an offensive-minded head coach, you can't assume every organization is looking for an offensive-minded head coach. They may just be looking for the best option, right? Someone that blows them away in an interview, right? So McDaniel may not be that guy. Like, that's why the Titans and the Giants job are the two, and maybe even the Ravens job to a lesser extent, but those 2 jobs, Titans and Giants, feel like the biggest threat to McDaniel getting hired. Again, we're not done yet, potentially. If the Bills can Sean McDermott, he could end up in Buffalo for all we know, with the weapons that they either do or don't have, depending on how you want to look at it. But they could always go out and get more. They got a dynamic running back already. They got the quarterback, and they could put more pieces at the receiver position around, Josh Allen. He could easily go there and try to unlock that offense if you're going to move on from Sean McDermott. So again, the possibilities are endless for him to get a head coaching job, which is why I'm not as comfortable right now until we see these openings start to take shape and names, not Mike McDaniel, start to fill these openings. I got to assume he's going to land one of these jobs. To your point, there's not a lot of great candidates available this cycle. So you feel like he's going to be able to slide into one of these jobs and make something shake. But if he doesn't get the Giants job, if he doesn't get the Titans job, and to me, the Titans are the one because they're desperate. Yeah, they got Cam Ward, but who wants the Titans job? Nobody wants that job. At least I don't think anybody wants the job. Somebody's going to want the job. There's only 32 of them. So when I say no one wants the job, I'm being facetious. I'm just saying it's the least desirable of all the jobs, because even the Raiders job, they don't have a quarterback. They have the number 1 pick. If you love one of the quarterbacks, they have the most cap space in the league this year. If you love any of these quarterbacks, that Raiders job is highly desirable. I've already talked about, they got Brock Bowers. They have Austin Genty. They got Max Crosby. They've got a foundation to work with. If you love Colton Miller at left tackle, they've got a left tackle. You've got pieces there to build around. Get the quarterback. You got a bunch of cap space to spend money to upgrade this roster quickly. You could turn things around in Vegas a lot faster than Tennessee, I believe, personally. So to me, the Titans pose the biggest threat, because it's a job where they may be happy to give it to Mike McDaniel, and he'll take any job, I think. I could be wrong, right? Once you've been a head coach, the itch is to be a head coach. He could be in a position where, all right, if I get another job, I want it to be the right job. So I'm willing to take a step back as the offensive coordinator, go somewhere where I can, really bolster my resume, get back out there, and then kill it the second time around. If that's his mindset, hey, we're ready. We're open for business here. But if he's one of these guys that wants to jump right back into the offensive head coaching space, I think there's going to be a chance that happens. So the percentage you asked, I'll put it at 10% right now. He ends up at offensive coordinator. I think he's going to land a head coaching job, but I'll put it at 10%. But the Titans and the Giants job get filled, and he's not at either one of those. This number goes up exponentially for me. So we'll see what happens. Terry Maples, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Jaden plus McDaniel equals forget Caleb, May, and Nix. Again, it don't got nothing to do with them, Terry. We just worried about Jaden. Those guys are all good in their own right. They're thriving in their situations. We just want to upgrade Jaden's situation, right? All of them have championship situations. Bo Nix has an offensive head coach as his play caller who's already won a Super Bowl and could easily end up being a Hall of Fame head coach. He's got a defense that is Super Bowl caliber, and he's got weapons around him. Drake May has a really good head coach, may even win NFL Head Coach of the Year in Mike Vrabel. He's got a really solid NFL defense, and he's got weapons around him. He's got a really good foundation. And Caleb has a turnover-inducing defense. He's got a head coach that everybody wanted last coaching cycle, and he's got the most weapons anybody probably has around them in Chicago with, multiple tight ends, a boatload of receivers, and two really solid NFL running backs. So all of their situations look like they're set for a very long time with an offensive-minded head coach, which means he's not going to have to keep recycling different coordinators to figure it out. Jaden doesn't have any of that right now. So let's just try to put the pieces of the puzzle together to make Jaden's situation more tenable so that he can then be in a situation that is stable and creates an environment where he can be at his best and become one of the best quarterbacks in the league, which is what we think he can be if they set him up for success. McDaniel definitely takes a step in that direction. But look, I don't even want to talk about what will happen if he does get here and how long he'll be here. We're just going to enjoy him while he's here, So let's see what happens. Ree, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Tez Johnson is our fastest receiver. And if that's the case, the reason Tez Johnson basically wasn't drafted, would you guys draft him in the 7th round, I believe? Like the reason he didn't get drafted because he ran a slow 40 time at the combine. Now, he might be actually faster than what he showcased at the combine. I can't imagine that he's not faster than that. But he didn't run fast. Fast guys run fast. Slow guys run slow. It's only a story when the opposite happens. And that happened in Indy last year, which is why his stock plummeted. So he can't be your fastest receiver. If he is, and the 40 time is accurate, then your team is, offensively is slow, right? So Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, my guy, C-Mac. Thank you for the super chat who writes, hey, Lou, what's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise, as always. McDaniel here as OC would be interesting. However, the personnel on O are still the underlying concerns. Who is RB1, TE1, and wide receiver 2? Coaching helps, but need more talent. Thoughts? Absolutely. But the first cog in that machine is who's putting all of this together. Because you can have all the talent in the world. We just saw Tampa Bay fired Josh Grizzard, or Grizzard, however the hell you say his name. And I just told you they got a ton of talent, a wealth of talent in Tampa Bay. He didn't get it done. We just saw the Lions, who won 15 games in the regular season last year, have all the talent in the world, 2 running backs, a 115 to 20 catch slot machine, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, a vertical threat with Williams and all of the other pieces, a Pro Bowl caliber tight end and Sam Laporta, all the pieces you could ask for. And they fired John Morton because he couldn't get it done. And now they're looking for an offensive coordinator. So you can have all the talent that you want. If you don't have a guy that can make it all work, it's irrelevant. So I hear what you're saying. This is the thing. Give me the coordinator over the talent, because a great coordinator is going to figure out a way to maximize what you have. Even if you don't give him enough to be elite, he'll make your shit good enough to be, if you've got a quarterback like we do, he'll make it good enough to where he can perform at a high level. Might not be elite, but he'll perform at a high level. You can have elite talent and a bad play caller and it doesn't work. So give me the play caller. We can still go out and shop for the groceries. But if you're looking for a master chef, McDaniel is it. And you can go get RB1. You can go get wide receiver 2. You can get TE1. I think they feel like TE1 is already here, but hey, that's another conversation for another day. The bottom line is you can find those things. We have plenty of time to find RB1, TE1, wide receiver 2. We got free agency. We got the draft. We got options. This is your one shot to find a guy that can make all of that work once you get it. That's why McDaniel is the most important priority if he isn't a head coach to get him here to Washington. Ree, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Ree writes, McDaniel would probably influence adding speed in the draft and through free agency. Absolutely. Wherever he goes, he's definitely going to, I think, lobby for adding more speed, because his system can survive without speed, but it can't thrive without speed. So adding speed, I think, would be paramount, and he would probably be lobbying for that wherever he goes. Apparently the Bucs are interested, but who wouldn't be? Everyone's interested. I already told you the Lions have already reached out to his contacts to figure out if he's interested or not. I would like to think that the first wave for him is going to be trying to see if any of these head coaching vacancies are interested, and if he's interested in those opportunities. And then once that subsides, if he doesn't get one of those jobs, I got to imagine that every single opening, and there may be 10 of them, right? Because there's already 8 jobs. We know that the Bucs now have one, the Lions have one, and we have one. That's 11 openings at offensive coordinator. Trust me, he's going to be at the top of the list for probably 10 out of the 11, assuming that John Harbaugh, wherever he goes, isn't taking his guy with him from Baltimore. If you're going to be willing to get fired behind not wanting to get rid of him, I got to think that Todd Monken is going wherever John Harbaugh is going. So he'd be the one job that I would say, wherever he lands, he's probably taking Todd Monken with him. But the other 10 jobs, you got to think that McDaniel is probably in play for at least 8 to 9 of them. At least. I mean, clearly, if you're an offensive-minded guy and you get a job, you're not looking for an offensive coordinator. Duh. So, like if Cliff, that's why I said you want Cliff Kingsbury getting hired, because Cliff isn't looking for an offensive coordinator. You want, and it feels like Seattle's offensive coordinator is going to get hired this cycle. He's already got 5 jobs, interviews lined up. If he nails these interviews, it feels like someone's going to hire him, Clint Kubiak. And of course, he's not looking for an offensive coordinator. He's probably going to call the plays wherever he goes. The more offensive head coaches that are hired, the better it is for a team like Washington that would love to add a guy like Mike McDaniel as their offensive coordinator. The more defensive-minded guys, special teams type guys that are, or like, you know, former player like Dan Campbell, who isn't really tied to calling plays, are hired, the more likely it is you're going to have competition. Doesn't mean you can't win. We still got Jaden Daniels. This is going to be a very attractive job. But you're going to have competition nonetheless. And it may turn into a bidding war, and that could be where you lose out, right? So we'll see. But yes, Ree, wherever he goes, speed is going to be added, I believe. Ree, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. rewrites, do you think the generally questions asked in an average head coach interview? He said, what do you think are generally, okay, I got it now. What do you think are generally the questions asked in an average head coach interview? Simulate it for me. I don't really know. Like, that's a tough question because I would assume every interview is different. You would have to imagine, however, that there are certain baseline questions that are going to be asked, that have to be asked by every single team. One of those questions is, what is your vision for this team? You would imagine, I want to know what it looks like. If I hire you, if I give you this job, what are you going to do to turn things around? That's got to be one of the questions, right? I would assume in some of these, not all of these interviews, you're going to have a question that sort of goes like, okay, so you saw what this team was last year. How would you have fixed what happened last year here, right? Something to that effect. And that may kind of bleed into the first question that I asked, which is, what's your vision for this team? I would assume that they would want to know, okay, if you get the job, who would you be looking to hire? What is your plans in terms of an offensive, defensive coordinator? Are you going to call the plays yourself? These are things they want to know, right? What kind of staff are you looking to put together? Who's going to be your offensive line coach? Who's going to be your D line? Like, those are things that they may want to be kind of filled in on and kind of see where your head is at. Obviously, if you already have a quarterback, so the questions may be different for the Raiders than it would be the Giants or the Titans. Why? Because they already have quarterbacks. So one of the questions for the Giants or Titans would be, how do you feel about Cam Ward if you're the Titans? How did you feel about Cam Ward coming out of Miami? How did you evaluate him? You know, these are questions because they want to know, if we bring you here, this is a guy that we spent the #1 overall pick on. We need to know that you're all in on this guy, right? Same thing with the Giants. How do you feel about Jackson Dart? What did you see from him last year? What's your vision for Jackson Dart if we bring you in as a head coach? What are some things you need to maximize Jackson Dart? You know, what's your plan if we were to give you this job in terms of filling out a staff? These are questions that I would assume you would get in a standard interview. And if they have a quarterback already, you get some of those questions as well. Again, every situation is different because of the situation that you're going into, i.e. Baltimore. You walk into Baltimore and they may not be overly pressed about what you would do here or there. They might want to know, are you going to be able to take Lamar Jackson and get him over the hump? Are you going to be able to bring a defensive coordinator in here that's going to give this team the best chance to win? Can you guarantee, like, if you're an offensive guy, they may say, hey, or they may be looking for a defensive guy and say, hey, can you bring an offensive guy with you that's going to be able to take Lamar Jackson in this offense to new heights? Lamar's been a 2-time MVP, but we haven't gotten it done in the postseason. Can you bring a guy in here that's going to help them get it done in the postseason while you make sure that this defense is elite? Because a lot of people think, and I know Cliff Kingsbury reportedly has an interview with the Ravens, but a lot of people think that they're going to go and hire a defensive-minded guy in Baltimore, and that may possibly be the case. And if you're going to do that, you better be able to bring a big-time offensive coordinator, and that's what we don't want, right? Is we don't want a guy like Jesse Minter getting the job in Baltimore, because then he's going to be on the prowl for a guy like Mike McDaniel, right? That's what we don't want. We want offensive-minded guys getting jobs because that lessens the likelihood that Mike McDaniel is going to be a candidate for them to be. Because if I'm Mike McDaniel and I don't get a head coaching job, I want to go to the best place that's going to allow me to bolster my resume. And I'm not trying to be OC for the next 4 or 5 years. I'm trying to do this for 1 or 2 years and jump right back into the fray as a head coach. So I'm not looking to go somewhere where I got to build up a young quarterback necessarily. Like, if you do a hell of a job building up Jackson Dart or Cam Ward, you know, 2 years, right? Like, you do it once and they're like, oh shit, that was impressive. Do it again. You do it again and it's on, you on some Ben Johnson shit now. Like, okay, he ready, right? Somebody go get him again, right? You go to Vegas, you got to start from scratch. You get a guy and you think you can unlock him, and then he gets there and he's not ready. That stunts your growth as a potential head coaching candidate, right? If you're Mike McDaniel, you want to go to Baltimore and be with Lamar. You want to go to Washington and be with Jaden Daniels. You want to go somewhere with a quarterback that's done it at a high level, at least in the case of Jaden Daniels, 1 year, but you see the talent. Or you want to go somewhere like Baltimore where Lamar's won 2 league MVPs. Even if it's mostly Lamar, you're going to get the credit for it. So I really, truly believe that different jobs facilitate different questions, obviously. But I think there are universal questions that get asked by every team. You know, what's your vision for our program? What are you going to do to come in here and change it and not be like the last guy we had in here? Who are you bringing with you if you get this job? What defensive coordinator, what offensive coordinator, what special teams coordinator? You know, what are you going to do differently? If you're a retread, what are you going to do differently? What did you learn from your first job that you feel confident you won't repeat this time around? Like, there are certain questions for certain guys, because if you're a first-time head coaching candidate, then there is no, what did you do last time? What did you learn if you're Jesse Minter? What did you learn from Jim Harbaugh? What did you learn from Harbaugh? What did you take from him? What would you bring here from Jim Harbaugh? Like, there's certain things that you would ask based off of the person that you're interviewing too. So anyway, I digress. That's how I think that would go. But I mean, these things are so expansive. You just never know what's being asked in these interviews. But I digress. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. The Commander Kings will ride again tonight at 7:45 p.m. We will be talking all things Commanders. We got so much to discuss. All 4 Kings will be back in the saddle, so it'll feel like it's supposed to tonight. And we're also going to have the college football playoffs on the television screen while we're talking to you guys simultaneously. So we will get to see Ruben Bain. For all of you Ruben Bain stands out there, we will be able to discuss the night that he is having, etc. You know, Chambliss is going to be out there, who is rapidly increasing his draft stock if he decides to come out. I know he's petitioning for a waiver to go back to school for a 6th year. If he gets the waiver, he's going back to school, he's already said. But if he doesn't and he has to come out, tonight's a big night for him, as was last week. So we will see what transpires with him. Lacey has already said he's going back to school. So Chambliss would love to go back, maybe run it back next year. We'll see what happens. But should be a lot of fun watching the game tonight, Miami Miami versus Ole Miss. So in any event, got one more super chat before we get out of here. Said Dara, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, give me Montgomery, Isaiah Likely, Alec Pierce, and re-sign Debo. Draft me David Bailey and give me Tariq Woolen from the Seahawks. I'm good. That's a lot. I'm with all of it, though. Montgomery is interesting. There's a I believe a specific way you go about Montgomery if you're going to bring him here. I'm not opposed to it. But he'd be the one guy I'd take out of the equation. I think we could do better at running back than Montgomery. He's another option. But the rest of those guys, sign me up. That would be a dream offseason for the Commanders, but highly unlikely. But you give me 2 or 3 of those dudes on that list that you just put together, which is a hell of a list, we'd be in great shape. We'd be in tremendous shape. So give me Isaiah Likely, Alec Pierce, and David Bailey. I feel great. You give me Alec Pierce, Tariq Woolen, and David Bailey, I feel excellent. You give me Alec Pierce, Isaiah Likely, and Tariq Woolen, I feel tremendous. Like, there's a lot you could do here. And again, bringing back Debo, it's cool too. That's cool too. So that'd be a dream off season. Anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully you'll join me in the Kings tonight for a big show. This offseason has gotten off to one whale of a start. Hopefully you'll join us a little bit later on to talk about it. In any event, I will see you guys tonight. If not tonight, more likely than not tomorrow. You guys take care. God bless and good night. Hey, DQ, you know what to do. Bring him home ASAP.